I have worked as a mechanic at my family's garage just outside Denver for the past 8 years. My hands are always stained with grease, my clothes smell like motor oil, but I take pride in what I do. I earn my living with these hands, fixing engines, helping people get back on the road. My name is Samuel, and for 5 years I thought I had found the woman I would spend my life with. Her name was Jessica. We had been engaged for 6 months, planning our fall wedding, talking about buying a small house together, building a future. But 3 weeks before the wedding, Jessica sat me down for an important conversation. She told me she needed us to open up our relationship. What she really meant was that she wanted the freedom to see other men while I stayed home and waited. Why? Because I was just a mechanic, not good enough for her anymore. Before we dive into what happened next, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let me know. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you will want to stick around to see how I handled this betrayal, because what happened next changed everything. It was a Friday evening when everything started to unravel. I had just come home from the garage, my shirt covered in oil stains from working on a vintage Mustang all day. Jessica had cooked dinner, which was unusual. She normally ordered takeout or ate before I got home. The table was set nicely, candles lit, and she had that look on her face, the nervous one, the one that told me something was coming. We sat down to eat, and she barely touched her food. She kept glancing at me, then looking away. Finally, she put down her fork and said she wanted to talk about our future. I thought maybe she wanted to discuss the wedding details, or perhaps suggest we postpone it. I never could have imagined what actually came out of her mouth. Jessica told me she had been thinking a lot lately. She said we were both still young, and she felt like maybe we were rushing into marriage without having fully explored life. I asked her what she meant by that. She hesitated then, said she wanted us to have an open relationship for the next 6 months before the wedding. She wanted to date other people to make sure she was making the right choice. I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, trying to process what I was hearing. I asked her if she was joking. She shook her head. I asked her what about me, could I see other people too? That is when her answer knocked the wind out of me. She said, well, I think you should just focus on your work. You have the garage to worry about. I could not believe what I was hearing. I asked her to explain what she meant. That is when Jessica started talking about her job at the marketing firm downtown. She said she met so many professionals there, successful people with real careers. She needed to know if she was making the right choice with me. Then she said the words that cut deeper than any knife. She said, you are just a mechanic, Samuel. I have opportunities to meet people with better futures. I need to explore that before I commit to you forever. Just a mechanic. Those 3 words echoed in my head. The career I had built, the trade I had learned from my father, the honest work I did with my hands every single day. Suddenly, it was not good enough. I was not good enough. Jessica sat there looking at me, expectantly waiting for me to agree to her proposal like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I asked her if she was serious. She nodded and said that if I really loved her, I would understand. She said this was important for her growth, for making sure she did not have regrets later. I felt like I was drowning. I told her I needed time to think about it. She looked disappointed, almost annoyed, and said she hoped I would come around because she had already made up her mind about what she needed. The next few days were torture. I could barely sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice saying, just a mechanic. I started replaying the past few months in my head, looking for signs I had missed, and they were there. Jessica had been making little comments here and there. She would mention how Dylan from her marketing team just bought a new BMW. She would sigh when I came home smelling like motor oil and suggest I should think about getting a desk job. She started dressing nicer for work, doing her makeup more carefully, staying late at the office. I began to wonder if there was already someone else. The more I thought about it, the more obvious it became. This was not about exploring before marriage. Jessica had found someone she thought was better than me, and she wanted to keep me as a backup plan while she tested the waters. A week after that horrible dinner conversation, I could not take the uncertainty anymore. I decided to tell Jessica I would agree to her open relationship idea, but only if it was fair for both of us. When I said that, her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She got upset. She said I did not need that I had her, and that should be enough. But she needed to explore. She needed options. That is when it clicked. This was never about fairness or exploration. Jessica wanted to keep me locked down while she shopped around for someone better. Someone who made more money, someone with a fancy title, someone who did not come home with dirt under his fingernails. I was supposed to sit at home like a faithful dog while she went out and had her fun. And if she did not find anyone better, she would settle for marrying me. But if she did find someone, well, I would be the one left picking up the pieces. 2 days later, I found out the whole truth, and it was worse than I had imagined. Jessica had left her laptop open on the kitchen table when she went to take a shower. I was not the type to snoop, but something made me glance at the screen. There was a message thread open. Messages between Jessica and someone named Dylan. The same Dylan she had mentioned so many times. My hands shook as I scrolled through the conversation. They had been seeing each other for 2 months. 2 months. Jessica had written to him about how she was handling me, how I was too naive to figure anything out. Dylan asked about the wedding, and Jessica replied that she would cancel it after the summer. She just needed to make sure everything was secured first. She wrote that she could not wait to upgrade from me. I felt sick. I kept reading. There were messages where Jessica made fun of me to Dylan. She wrote that I smelled like motor oil, even after I showered. She complained about my work schedule, my hands, my clothes. Everything about me was a joke to her. But the worst part was finding out why she had not canceled the wedding yet. My parents had already paid the deposit for the venue. $15,000. Jessica was planning to take that money, let my family lose it, and then use it to go on a trip to Europe with Dylan. I sat there in our kitchen, staring at that screen, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. 5 years together. 5 years of loving this woman, working extra hours to save for her engagement ring, planning a future together. And all of it was a lie. She had been cheating on me, mocking me, using me, and I had been too trusting, too blind to see it. I thought about confronting her right then, screaming, throwing her stuff out the window. But something stopped me. I remembered what my father always told me. He said, "Son, never let anyone treat you like you are nothing. Your worth is not in your bank account. It is in your character, your work ethic, your integrity." And he also taught me that when someone wrongs you, the best revenge is not anger. It is strategy. So, I did not confront Jessica. Instead, I took screenshots of every single message, every conversation, every cruel joke, every lie. I saved them all. Then I closed the laptop and acted like nothing had happened. When Jessica came out of the shower, I smiled at her. I told her I had been thinking about her proposal, and maybe she was right. Maybe we should try the open relationship thing. She looked surprised, but pleased. She probably thought she had finally broken me down. Over the next week, I put my plan into action. First, I contacted a lawyer. I explained the situation and asked about my options. He told me that since Jessica and I were not married yet, my parents could request a refund on the venue deposit, especially if we had proof of infidelity and deception. He also mentioned that depending on how we documented everything, we might even be able to pursue damages for emotional distress and fraud. I gave him copies of all the screenshots. Next, I contacted the wedding venue, the caterer, the photographer, everyone we had hired. I explained that there might be a cancellation coming and asked about their policies. Most of them were sympathetic. A few even offered to transfer our deposits to other dates or refund partial amounts. I kept detailed records of every conversation. Then came the hardest part. I had to keep pretending everything was fine. I had to watch Jessica get dressed up for her dates with Dylan, knowing she thought I was too stupid to figure it out. I had to listen to her talk about her day, knowing she was lying through her teeth. But I held on. I reminded myself that this was not about revenge. This was about justice. This was about making sure Jessica did not get to walk away from this without consequences. 2.5 weeks after I discovered the truth, I set my plan in motion. I told Jessica I wanted to organize a family dinner at a nice restaurant. I said I thought it would be good for both our families to get together, before the wedding, to get to know each other better. Jessica loved the idea. She probably thought I had fully accepted my role as her backup plan. I reserved a private dining room at a steakhouse downtown. I invited my parents, my younger brother, Jessica's parents, her older sister, and a few close friends from both sides. About 20 people total. I also made one special invitation that Jessica did not know about. I called Dylan. I told him I was Jessica's fiancé and that I knew about their relationship. He started to apologize, but I cut him off. I told him I was not angry at him. I just thought he deserved to know the truth about Jessica, too. I invited him to come to the dinner. He was hesitant, but I could tell he was curious. He agreed. The night of the dinner arrived. Jessica wore a beautiful blue dress. She was excited, chatting with everyone, playing the role of the perfect bride-to-be. I watched her laugh and smile, knowing that in a few minutes everything would change. We sat down to eat. Appetizers were served. Wine was poured. Everyone was relaxed and happy. Then I stood up. I tapped my glass to get everyone's attention. I thanked them all for coming, said how much it meant to us to have our families together. Then I took a deep breath and said, "But I have some unfortunate news. There is not going to be a wedding." The room went silent. Jessica's face drained of color. My mother gasped. Everyone started talking at once, asking what happened, if everything was okay. I raised my hand and asked them to let me finish. I said I had recently discovered that my fiancé had been having an affair for the past 2 months. I had brought evidence to share with everyone. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the small projector I had secretly set up earlier. I had told the restaurant staff it was for a slideshow presentation. Now Jessica's text messages with Dylan filled the screen on the wall. Message after message. Her calling me naive. Her plans to cancel the wedding. Her jokes about how I smelled. Her comments about upgrading from just a mechanic. Jessica started crying immediately. She tried to say it was not what it looked like, that I had misunderstood, that those messages were taken out of context. But there was no context that could explain away what everyone was reading. Her mother started crying too. Her father looked furious, but I could not tell if he was angry at Jessica or at me for exposing her like this. My parents sat quietly, my father's hand on my mother's shoulder. They looked sad but not surprised. I had told them everything the night before. They knew this was coming. My dad just nodded at me, a silent message of support. Then the door to the private dining room opened. Dylan walked in. He looked uncomfortable, clearly, not wanting to be there, but he came anyway. Jessica saw him, and her tears turned to panic. She started shaking her head, saying, "No, no, no." Dylan walked up to the screen, read the messages projected there, and his face hardened. He turned to Jessica and said, "You told me you had already broken up with him. You said the wedding was off. You lied to me too." Jessica tried to reach for Dylan, but he stepped back. He said he did not sign up for this kind of drama. He thought she was single, or at least separated. He had no idea she was still planning a wedding, still living with me, still playing both of us. Dylan looked at me and apologized. Then he walked out. The room erupted. Jessica's sister started yelling at her. Jessica's mother was demanding to know how this happened. Jessica's father looked at my father and said they would pay back every cent of the deposit. He seemed humiliated that his daughter had done this to our family. My father accepted graciously, but said they would be hearing from our lawyer regarding the other expenses and damages. Jessica ran out of the restaurant, still crying. A few people followed her, trying to console her, or maybe just wanting to hear more of the story. I stayed. I finished my dinner. I thanked the restaurant staff for their patience with the disruption. I hugged my parents. My mother was crying, but she told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself. My father shook my hand and said, "That is my boy. You did the right thing." Over the next few weeks, the fallout continued. Jessica's family returned the $15,000 deposit to my parents. They also covered some of the other wedding expenses that could not be refunded. Our lawyer sent them a letter outlining potential legal action if they did not cooperate, and they chose to settle quietly to avoid further embarrassment. In total, my family recovered about $22,000. But money was not the most important thing that happened. Word spread quickly about what Jessica had done. Her friends heard about it. Her coworkers found out. Within a month, she had left her job at the marketing firm. I heard through mutual friends that the company did not want the drama, and Jessica felt too humiliated to stay. Dylan wanted nothing to do with her, after he realized she had manipulated him too. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened for me. The customers at my garage heard about what happened. Small towns talk, and even though Denver is a big city, the community around our garage was tight-knit. People started coming to me not just for car repairs, but to tell me they respected how I had handled the situation. They told me their own stories of betrayal and how they wished they had stood up for themselves the way I did. Business at the garage picked up. Several local business owners, people whose cars I had been fixing for years, offered me new contracts. One owned a taxi company and needed someone reliable to maintain his fleet of 20 vehicles. Another ran a logistics company with a dozen delivery trucks. They trusted me not just because I was good at my job, but because they had seen my character tested and I had not crumbled. Within 3 months, my income had more than doubled. I hired 2 new mechanics to help with the increased workload. I started thinking about expanding, maybe opening a second location. The business my father had built, the trade he had taught me, the work I had always been proud of. Suddenly it was thriving in ways I had never imagined. The first few weeks after everything fell apart were not easy. I would be lying if I said I bounced back immediately. Some nights I would lie in bed and wonder if any of the 5 years with Jessica had been real. Did she ever actually love me, or was I always just a placeholder until something better came along? Those thoughts hurt more than the betrayal itself. But I did not let myself stay in that dark place for long. I had work to focus on, and work had always been my therapy. I spent long hours at the garage, losing myself in the rhythm of engines and the smell of oil and metal. My father would come by sometimes not to check on the business, but to check on me. He would bring coffee and we would sit in the office, not always talking, but his presence was enough. He knew what I needed. I also started spending more time with my friends, the ones I had neglected, while trying to build a life with Jessica. We would go fishing on weekends or catch a game at a sports bar, or just hang out in someone's garage working on project cars. It felt good to be around people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide or what title I had. Around 4 months after the breakup, I decided to take a class at the community college. It was a small business management course, something I had been thinking about for a while. I wanted to learn how to grow the garage properly, how to manage employees, how to handle finances better. The class met twice a week in the evenings. That is where I met Emma. She was a 3rd-grade teacher at an elementary school across town. She was taking the same class because she was thinking about starting a tutoring business on the side. We ended up sitting next to each other on the first night, mostly by accident. She dropped her pen. I picked it up. We started chatting before class began. Emma was different from Jessica in every way. She dressed simply jeans and sweaters, her hair usually pulled back in a ponytail. She had a warm smile and she laughed easily. When I told her I was a mechanic, she did not wrinkle her nose or change the subject. Instead, she asked me what kind of cars I liked to work on. She told me her dad had been a mechanic too back in Ohio, and some of her favorite childhood memories were of sitting in his shop, handing him tools, learning the names of engine parts. We became friends over the next few weeks. After class, we would sometimes grab coffee at the diner next to the college. We talked about our lives, our goals, our past relationships. Emma had been engaged once too. Her ex had cheated on her with her best friend. She understood betrayal in a way that most people could not. There was no judgment from her, no pity, just understanding. I appreciated that Emma never tried to rush anything. We were just 2 people who enjoyed each other's company. She would tell me funny stories about her students, and I would tell her about the strange car problems I encountered. Once I helped her change the brakes on her old Honda Civic in the parking lot of her apartment building. She insisted on paying me, but I refused. She made me dinner instead, spaghetti and homemade garlic bread. It was simple and delicious, and I realized I had not felt that comfortable around someone in a very long time. 6 months after the dinner where I exposed Jessica, the garage expansion was complete. We opened a second location on the other side of town, a bigger space with more equipment, and room for 4 mechanics to work simultaneously. My father came to the opening. He put his hand on my shoulder and told me he was proud, not just of the business, but of the man I had become. Around that same time, Emma and I started dating officially. It happened naturally. We had been spending so much time together that it felt like we were already a couple. One evening after class ended for the semester, we went to dinner to celebrate. At the end of the night, I walked her to her car, and she kissed me. It was soft and sweet, and it felt right. She pulled back and said she had been wanting to do that for weeks. I told her I had too. Dating Emma was nothing like dating Jessica. There was no drama, no games, no feeling like I had to prove myself constantly. Emma appreciated me for who I was. When she visited the garage, she would chat with my employees, compliment the work we were doing, and tell me how proud she was of what I had built. She introduced me to her students on career day, told them I was the best mechanic in the city, and several kids told me they wanted to be mechanics when they grew up. That moment meant more to me than any amount of money ever could. I was not in a hurry to get married again. The experience with Jessica had taught me to be cautious, to take my time to really know someone before making that kind of commitment. Emma understood. She was in no rush either. We both knew we had found something special, and we wanted to let it grow naturally. About a year after everything happened with Jessica, I ran into her at a coffee shop downtown. It was completely by chance. I was picking up drinks for the guys at the garage, and she was sitting alone at a corner table. She looked different, tired. Her hair was shorter, her clothes less polished than I remembered. When she saw me, she hesitated, then stood up and walked over. She asked if we could talk for a minute. I agreed. We stepped outside away from the crowd. Jessica told me she was sorry. She said she had spent the past year thinking about what she had done, about how badly she had treated me. She was working as a receptionist at a dental office, now living in a small apartment, trying to rebuild her life. She said she had lost a lot of friends over what happened. People did not trust her anymore. Dylan had spread the word about how she had lied to him too, and it damaged her reputation even further. She told me she realized now that she had thrown away the best thing in her life. She said I had been good to her, faithful, hardworking, and she had taken that for granted. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I looked at her, and honestly, I did not feel anger anymore. I felt nothing. The hurt had faded. The betrayal had become just a memory, something that happened to a different version of me. I told Jessica I did not hate her. I said I hoped she found what she was looking for, but it was never about what I did for a living or how much money I made. It was about respect. It was about valuing someone for who they are, not what they can provide. I told her I had moved on and she should too. Then I walked away. I did not look back. That night I had dinner with Emma. I told her about running into Jessica. Emma asked me how I felt about it. I said I felt free. Free from anger, free from resentment, free from any lingering attachment to that part of my life. Emma smiled and squeezed my hand across the table. She said she was glad because I deserved to be happy. And I was happy. My garage was thriving. My second location was doing even better than I had hoped. I had hired 6 employees total now, and I was training them the same way my father had trained me, with patience and respect. I had started a scholarship program at the local high school for students interested in trade careers. Every year I would sponsor 2 students to attend technical school, covering their tuition and providing them with internships at my garage. I wanted young people to know that working with your hands, building things, fixing things, that was honorable work. That was real work, and nobody should ever make you feel ashamed of it. Emma and I continued to grow closer. After 8 months of dating, she moved in with me. It felt natural, easy, like she had always been there. She would grade papers at the kitchen table while I reviewed invoices for the garage. We would cook dinner together, watch movies, talk about our days. It was simple, and it was beautiful. There was no drama, no jealousy, no feeling inadequate. Just 2 people who respected and cared for each other, building a life together one day at a time. I learned a lot from what happened with Jessica. I learned that your worth is not determined by your job title or your bank account. I learned that honest work is nothing to be ashamed of. I learned that betrayal, as painful as it is, can be a gift in disguise. It removes the wrong people from your life and makes room for the right ones. I learned that standing up for yourself, even when it is hard, even when it is scary, is always worth it. Most importantly, I learned that you do not need anyone's validation except your own. For years, I had let Jessica make me feel like I was not good enough. I had internalized her criticisms, her subtle put-downs, her implication that being a mechanic was somehow lesser than other careers. But the truth is, I was always enough. I was always worthy. I just needed to believe it myself. Now, when I go to work every morning, I feel pride. When I teach a young apprentice how to rebuild an engine, I feel purpose. When a customer thanks me for getting their car running again, for being honest about what they need and what they do not, I feel respected. And when I come home to Emma, when she asks me about my day, and genuinely wants to know when she tells me she is proud of me, I feel loved, really loved. Not conditional love based on what I can provide, but real love based on who I am. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled things with Jessica. They ask if maybe I should have just confronted her privately instead of exposing her in front of everyone, but I do not regret it. What she did was not just a private betrayal. She was willing to let my family lose thousands of dollars. She was willing to humiliate me, to mock me behind my back, to use me as a safety net, while she searched for someone better. That kind of behavior does not deserve private discretion. It deserves accountability. I hope Jessica has learned from what happened. I hope she has grown and become a better person. I genuinely do, but that is not my concern anymore. My concern is my own life, my own happiness, my own future. And that future looks bright. Emma and I talk about marriage sometimes. We are not in a hurry, but we both know it is where we are heading. When the time comes, it will be right. It will be built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. Not on status or money, or trying to live up to some imagined standard of success. Just two people who choose each other every day. The garage continues to grow. I am looking at possibly opening a third location next year. My father jokes that I have surpassed him, but I tell him that everything I have I owe to what he taught me. He taught me to value hard work. He taught me to treat people fairly. He taught me that integrity matters more than profit. And he taught me never to let anyone make me feel small. Those lessons carried me through the darkest time of my life, and they continue to guide me every day. Looking back now, I can see that losing Jessica was not a loss at all. It was a liberation. She did not see my worth, but that was her blindness, not my deficiency. I am exactly who I am supposed to be. I work with my hands. I fix things, I build things, and I do it well. That is enough. That has always been enough. And anyone who does not see that does not deserve a place in my life. So if you are going through something similar, if someone is making you feel like you are not good enough, like you need to change who you are to earn their love, I want you to hear this. You are enough, exactly as you are. Your job does not define your worth. Your bank account does not determine your value. What matters is your character, your integrity, your heart. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. Sometimes the people who make you feel small are the ones who need to feel big, but you do not need their validation. You just need to know your own worth. And when you do, everything else falls into place. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone make you feel like you were not good enough? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And if this story helped you in any way, if it gave you strength or perspective, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss future stories. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. You never know whose life you might change by simply sharing the truth. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are, whatever you are going through, you remember your worth. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone dim your light. You deserve respect. You deserve honesty. You deserve real love. And sometimes the best thing that can happen is when the wrong person walks away, because it makes room for the right one to walk in. Take care of yourselves out there.